Mike, we've been friends now for a little while. It's an honor to have you on our podcast and having the opportunity to learn more about your journey as a business owner, as a father, as somebody that is really well regarded within the volunteer and the faith community. Um, it's a pleasure to learn more about you and your history and your story, and it's cool to be able to share just little things that I know about you, like I mean, you've been married 36 years to Lisa. That's such an accomplishment. I mean, you have a lovely wife, but any marriage that lasts 36 years, you're doing something right. You have two daughters, well-adjusted adults. That's a win right there. And you've been working in an ownership capacity at a large insurance brokerage for 32 or 36 years. I know you've been in insurance for 30. How long have you been in insurance? Is it 36?
I've been in the insurance world for 38 years. So this will be my
38.
39th year in August. No, I'm sorry. In Yeah, in August. Sorry, the years roll by.
And the thing that we always like to highlight on these podcasts is, the business owners who their heart for the community too. And that's one of the things that I've always, since I've known you, looked up to you on is how much you give back. Like how many hours you put in serving with the homeless, serving with the youth, just the way that you invest in our community. Is a testament to your heart and your desire to make a difference. And excited to learn more, kind of like what's motivated you and what's brought you to this point and what's that journey been like.
Yeah.
So
You know, when I really think about it, I have had the atypical experience relative to a lot of my friends, a lot of my peers. I mean, I was lucky enough to start with a company back in 1987, and I'm still here in a different capacity. But I've never jumped ship. I never drifted away from the industry. I've always been in insurance. And I think about it a lot. It's like, how come I have friends and family who've just gone on to do a variety of different things? And when I tell my customers this a lot, and I tell a lot of people who are maybe thinking about getting into the industry, I'm in a magical industry and a magical position with a great company where I get to use money to make problems go away. Now, I can't change a personal disaster and tragedy, but I can certainly do my best to use money to make financial unexpected events to help people recover from that with a checkbook. I mean, how many people get to do that? And so I get to write checks for a living. And maybe that's an oversimplification of what I do, but it's given me a mindset to be able to serve people and really be committed to helping them out when they need us most.
That's amazing. If I could drill a little bit deeper in your origin story, most 15 and 16-year-old kids don't imagine themselves necessarily being attracted and going into the insurance industry. So when you talk to many insurance professionals, they have their own origin story and their own reason why and how they ended up there. So could you share a little bit more about yours?
Yeah. I don't believe in just dumb luck, Dom. Nothing happens just, out of the blue for no reason. And a good friend of mine from Sac State, I graduated in economics at Sac State. And back then, we had like 12 people in a class because no one wanted to be an econ major. We're just weird folks. But my friend Candace told me about an opening with a company. And I thought, well, I never really thought about that. In fact, I never thought about that. And it just turned out to be a great career path. And the more I learned about it, the more interested I got. And, at a very young age, I learned people skills. When I was born in Oakland. I grew up a handful of my early years in Richmond. And I think our house was burglarized for the third or fourth time. And I still have vivid memories of coming home from the movies with my parents and them saying, don't touch anything until the police get here and can dust for prints. And by the time the umpteenth burglary occurred, the pendulum swung, and my parents moved us to Sonoma County, in Petaluma, where the only Asian families, there are probably a handful of them, they were all egg farmers living out in other side of town. So I had to learn how to be a chameleon of sorts and get along with people at a very early age and kind of meld in when I didn't really fit. And I think that that serves you well in insurance because you never know who you're going to meet. That's one of the greatest joys of my job is I get to meet millionaires and I get to meet people who may be a millionaire someday but are having trouble paying their bill every month.
Throughout your time being in the insurance industry, I'm sure you've seen all sorts of changes and transitions. Can you tell us a little bit about, some of the challenges that you faced, earlier in your career versus later in your career, and like where you see the industry headed?
Yeah, great question. So I would start with Dom, going back to trust. When I was in college, I interned for the county of Sacramento, and I thought I was going to be a budget analyst. I had my own office on 7th Street as a senior in college. I was dressing like an adult person, not wearing flip-flops and a tank top to some of my classes because I had to go straight to work. And my thought was I was going to graduate college and then become a budget analyst for the county. And my ego was, filled with lots of that. And then I got crushed because at the end of the semester, when I'm going to graduate, I tested for the county budget analyst position, and it was a 2-part process: a written test and an oral interview. I flamed out so badly on the written, I could not qualify for the oral. So I'm taking my name off the door. I'm explaining to the people I know that, I'm not going to be here after all because I don't have a job here. I mean, I was just crushed, but not through chance, but, through just trusting that the right things were going to happen. I just kind of soldiered on, and, I found the insurance industry. So it was, a lot of times I know it seems like a cliche, but you cannot get too excited about the highs, and you cannot just, go down the wormhole when you go down into a chasm.
Well, and knowing you, Mike, and now knowing your working genius, like your traits, you would have been miserable long term in that role. So if they'd
Yes.
actually switched it and you had the oral first, which you would have been able to completely wow them with your communication skills, and then kind of like eked by on the written side, you probably would have ended up there and you'd be that burnt out guy at like 45, like drinking every day and like miserable because that's all tenacity and discernment. And those two are not your highest. So like you would have been so miserable over time. So thank God you failed that that written test.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, I did operations with my company for 5 years, and the whole idea of having to write a memo to get time off just seems so ridiculous to me. And a couple of times I got edged out and had to work on 4th of July, and I'm just thinking, this is wrong. I just can't do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
How is the we had this period of time with all the fires. I mean, when it comes to like changes, especially in California, like where is the industry at now, and like how has that um how has that gone since that really crazy, sad, and tragic time that we've had in our state?
Yeah, without boring everyone to death, I would just try and simplify it to say that we created a slow boil here that led to this mess. One of which we made the insurance commissioner elected office. That just bad, because that became a process where people would run for insurance commissioner and then think about running for higher office. And it was just a stepping stone. I don't think the institutional knowledge to run that department was there. It just became a political process. Now, I know from outside looking in, most people think that insurance companies are just have silos of money and don't want to open up those silos to make it right when things go wrong. And I know that people don't get treated well on some claims experiences. It just happens, and that's really regrettable. But the reality of it is if we've opened up our books to the regulators, they've seen that for decades we're bleeding red. My company was in the worst times bleeding at about $750 million a month. And when you show that to the regulators and you say, look, we can only put up with this for so long before bad things are going to happen, but then our voice is not heard, that's a problem. And so what you had is you had this exodus of companies leaving California quietly, some of them quietly and some not so quietly. But when you're the biggest property and casualty insurer in the United States and you leave, the media hears it and the media reacts, the public hears it and reacts, and then it becomes a firestorm, no pun intended. And so as a result, now you have really bad choices for the consumer. They have limited options, if any at all. Prices are going through the roof because there's no one willing to participate in the marketplace. And so if you want a healthy market, I want my competitors in there, making me a better agent, making my company a better company, bringing other companies in to compete for services, which technologically it makes us have to get better. It makes us have to treat our customers better than we ever have. It raises the bar, but instead you've had this exodus. And so now I really feel badly for my clients who are on fixed incomes because many of them are having trouble paying their bills. Many of them moved to Grass Valley because they wanted a quiet retirement life and just a simple existence. And their insurance rates have doubled and tripled. Well, when you're on a fixed income, you never plan for that. And so now so consumer choice has been taken away as a result of really bad market conditions. I mean, I think we've all seen it, but crime is out of control. I have a lot of my small business customers who just, quietly say to me or themselves, I wish I could just shut this down and get out of this, but it's just not that easy. I have a customer of mine who was burglarized he was burglarized 8 times before we canceled him. And then when I had to deliver the bad news, he said, well, actually, it was 12, but I was afraid to report the other 4 because I figured I'd get canceled.
Wow.
So where's he going to go now? He's wearing a huge scarlet letter on his business that he's had claims trouble, and now he's got to go out there and try and buy insurance on his own. And there's very few participants in the market to help. So, So I could go on and on, but I think there's just a confluence of really bad factors coming in: crime, people's lack of respect for laws and decency that has led to some really bad results.
Is there any light that you see any progress being? Is there any positives that are happening to mitigate any of these things that are going on, or you feel like it's still kind of in the heading in the trajectory downward direction?
Well, about 2 years ago, I said it couldn't get any worse, and they got worse. I'm by nature an optimist, and I'm really hopeful that by the end of the year, my company will have hammered out some sort of agreement with our regulators to re-enter the marketplace. And we're not trying to just hammer people with rate increases, but I think, insurance is a pool of risk. And if we could just get some rate concessions throughout the state so that we're not trying to climb a mountain here, but just get some small incremental widespread increases, we can spread that risk out, properly price our products, and get back into the marketplace. So I'm hoping by the end of 2025, we've got some better news.
Yeah. So being in the industry for almost 40 years, I'm sure you've seen, all sorts of cycles, and there's good times and difficult times. We're kind of sounds like we're certainly in those difficult eras. I would love for you to kind of take us through the evolution of your career, because you mentioned earlier that you started out in operations, and we know that you transitioned to becoming an agency owner. And tell us about what that journey was and your evolution of stepping into a leadership role. some of your potential key learnings. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, so I'll re-ask and re-dig in on certain aspects of it, but just kind of take us through that.
When I go on a tangent, you can bring me back in.
Yeah, I'll reel you back in. We'll reel you back in.
Yeah. So to go back to that whole theme of trust, I think you really have to figure out what you like to do and what you absolutely don't want to do. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in my don't want to do pile that only became evident after I did the operations, the claims job for 5 years. And Justin he's reading my mind right now, but I don't like all that structure. I don't like asking for time off for vacation. I don't want people telling me where I can sit in the office and, and I really flourish. I really enjoy working with people. And so it was just a natural fit for me to be able to just sit down and talk to people. I mean, when I'm really good at my job, I'm talking to my clients about stuff that they're not going to speak about unless they're in front of their priest or their therapist. I mean, to present life insurance solutions, protecting them from a lawsuit, making sure the business is properly covered. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that could just, it's not an irritant. It's not an irritant. That is absolute financial, tragedy. And I take that really seriously. So to be able to talk to people about that kind of thing is extremely gratifying. And not when I want things to go wrong in people's lives, but when it does happen and I can be the only person with a checkbook, is really gratifying to me. And so, I spent a lot of time, dialing for dollars and cold calling and doing all that stuff that every salesperson hates. But then referrals started coming in. And if you treat people well, they're going to tell people. And so I've never wanted to just have the biggest insurance agency in Sacramento, but I just want to work with people that I enjoy working with, interacting with them and helping them solve problems. And that has served me really, really well. I started with the largest company. And that would be my recommendation for anyone, whether you're getting into plumbing or insurance, go with the biggest company because you're going to get the best training, best exposure in the shortest amount of time. And then that's when I jumped ship 5 years after being in operations into just going into pure sales and having a lot more control over my career. And that's where I've been for the last 33 years. And a lot of my friends are retiring. It's kind of funny. I feel like a total loser because I've got neighbors who are just, going on bike rides in the middle of the day and, doing all sorts of great stuff, which is great. But I don't want to give this up yet. I still enjoy working with people. And so a lot of my friends say, well, when are you going to retire? I was like, I don't know. It's not even on, the horizon.
I want to point on something there that's really really important around that time in your life of the retiring or not retiring, because there's that purpose vacuum that a lot of the retiring people experience, and where you leave your job and you don't have anything that really fills your cup and you are miserable. We talked about that with a friend of yours, and also the fact that retirement should just be that you get to use your God-given gifts and talents more. Like you can do what you want, right? So
Right.
you're working with people all the time and you're a people person. So like you're doing something in your career that gives you energy, as long as you're not dealing with tasks and administrative paperwork all the time, like which you would hate. But like if you were doing all that all the time, I'd say you'd be retiring fast. But I think the
Right.
people that have a career that they're leveraging their gifts regularly, there's no reason for them to retire because it's not draining them. They actually are nourished by it, right? It's enjoyable, it's
Right.
fun, it's fulfilling. So
Yeah.
sounds like you're still experiencing that, right? It's not like you're crossing off the days to you get to retire.
Right. And it's somewhat infectious because I've got one of my team members who's been with us for 8 years, and she comes along with me on some of this stuff that I'm able to do because I have autonomy. And so, on Tuesday nights we'll go and feed the homeless, and
Yeah.
we've been doing that now since before the pandemic. So, that's going on 5 years, and every time I leave that on Tuesday nights, I'm more energized than when I walked in. I've gotten more than I've given. But I couldn't have done that if I was still schlepping in my operation. I mean, some people love that. It just wasn't my thing. But I, I feel like, man, I got the greatest deal in the world, and I just serve meals for an hour to people less fortunate than we are. I mean, that's just a pretty cool gig.
Well, and not everybody would get leave that with more energy than they had, because you being high on that enablement trait, you get energy from responding to the needs of others and seeing them get those needs met. Just like when you give a check and you see that changing somebody's trajectory of their life. So so it's also a really good point of like find those volunteer things that let you leverage your gifts and talents, because that will help fuel your work. I found that when I did Dress to Soar, same thing, around the youth. Because so that's such a good point of like how you have found opportunities to like fill your cup in volunteering. Which does that make you more motivated and more inspired in your work because you had the opportunity to give back in that way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I almost feel like God's given me the ability to earn a lifestyle to take care of my family first and foremost, but also give me the autonomy to go searching for different things that make me spiritually complete. And
Hmm.
it's not like I'm tapped out and I'm not going to do anything else, because I'm always open to different things. But right now, I feel like I have a really good balance of work life and spiritual things, that make me feel whole.
100%. I
Can you
look
tell us
it's
a little bit more about that potential intersection and like the sources of inspiration for you, and how faith may play a component in how you live out your day to day work life?
Well, Dom, I put it into perspective. I feel like in terms of my faith, I was on a CCC, Catholic Cruise Control, for for half a century, and I did not have an appreciation for what God has brought to my family and for me. And it wasn't until a really embarrassing moment in front of my high school friends where I realized, first of all, I don't even know how to pray. And I thoroughly embarrassed myself in front of, a bunch of people. And that was just one of those moments where your ego is checked and you're realizing, you think you're somebody. And then when you look in the mirror, you realize, man, I am not what God wanted me to be. I am not what my parents wanted me to be. And you better get to work on this stuff. And it was that ego check. It was that moment of humiliation where I realized, I went to a Catholic high school. I was an altar boy in my early childhood days. But I was in Catholic cruise control. I had never spent time reading the Gospels. I had never really understood. My goodness, I've got two young girls in our house, and we are not practicing our faith. What is the long term effect of this going to be? Um, and so it was a relatively short period of time ago where um, I had my epiphany, if you will, and that that was a moment where I just realized, I've got to dedicate my life to my faith and to my family, for a much better outcome. And, without a doubt, I am not the person I was when I was 50. Well, first of all, I'm older and more sore. But two, I just feel like, man, I'm firing maybe not on all eight cylinders, but maybe six and a half. And I got a lot of room to grow, but I'm heading in the right direction every day. Every day I wake up, I say, "Good morning, Jesus. Thank you for the day that I had yesterday. Thank you for the great weekend. Thank you for bringing me and my family home safely. What are we going to do today?"
wonderful. I've definitely seen, I mean, I have not known you for that long, but I've seen a shift in you since the time that I met you compared to now, and it sounds like there's some really cool things happening around seeing the graces and the gifts that you have and having gratitude for all that God's doing. I call it like the 6 G's. I've been working on like these G. So I feel like God has all these different G things that all tie into Him and how we embrace His the gifts He gives us with gratitude, the graces we can identify and see, the generosity that flows out of us. There's all these lovely G's that go along with God. So you're just describing a lot of that. So thank you for illuminating that for me.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've provided a really wonderful outline. I don't know if you have any advice to specifically people coming into the industry or people on their faith journey. I don't know if you had any like clarifying moments in terms of your evolution of becoming a leader, becoming an agency owner. That would be helpful to share. But any of those would be awesome.
Well, I think the industry of insurance. It's kind of funny you say that, Dom, because I had one of our youth from our parish approach me a couple of years ago. He goes, "Hey, I want to know more about what you do, and is there any way I could come up?" He lives down in Bakersfield, and he wanted to come up and job shadow me, and then our homeowners market got shut down, and we were starting to. The business was really going south, and I had to tell Moses, like, time out, dude. This is not the time to be looking at the industry. So I would just simply say the insurance industry is not going away, but it is certainly changing, and the ground is moving under our feet. But I think for folks who have a sense of empathy, that like helping people, I mean, this is a great industry to be in. But you do have to trust and spend some time thinking to yourself, okay, what do I really enjoy doing, and what do I not enjoy? If you don't like talking to people, you're in the wrong business. If you like helping people, it's a great business, but there's going to be times where you got to interact with folks and it ain't the best conversation. If you can't turn that negative into a positive, or at least not crater when you have the bad conversation, then there's a lot to be said about being in this business. But I think looking back, I just was kind of walking with my eyes closed. I was not really understanding what was happening around me, and I was being given all these opportunities, and I wasn't really recognizing the why. I mean, God was putting these things in front of me with a purpose, and some of them I flourished. For 4 years, I served on our trade association for the insurance industry here in California. And as much as I love those folks, I did not like the work. And so that was clear to me that I like helping people. I'm not so much about getting into the industry and getting into the legislative side of things and pushing a bigger agenda in the business. That is just not where I find my energy. So after my 4-year term, I stepped away, and I appreciate the folks that are doing the hard work for us in the business to keep us viable. But that is not something I want to do. But then working in youth ministry with our parish, I love that kind of stuff. And so again, my business has given me flexibility to look into different things, spend time doing things where if I had a regular 9 to 5, it would just not be possible. And so I'm very grateful for that.
What are some of the things that you find to be most challenging in terms of being an agency owner, and the things that you feel like you could never give up?
A lot of it, I would say, Dom, has to do with control. Yeah. Like I left the operations side because I didn't have control. So I came into agency and I felt like I had a lot. But right now, I mean, we wrote our last homeowners policy May of 2023. I mean, that's a while. And I got the bad news while I was doing one of the things I love most. I'm out there fishing on Folsom Lake, and all of a sudden my phone goes off and it's like, we're out of the market. It's like, what? Yeah. So control is a biggie. And when I got into this business in 1992, I had a lot of control and a lot of autonomy. And right now, what I have control over in this business is really shrunk. So it's very frustrating, but you just got to deal with it.
Yeah. Excellent.
How,
Well,
oh,
go ahead,
continue.
Justin.
Well, I was just gonna, within your journey of being a leader in your agency, when it comes to building a team, I think you've always had a team since you started, or and how has been your trajectory of growth as a leader of others? Because both Dom and I believe that you're only as good as the team that you develop, and that you have people around you who make you better. That's going to create great outcomes. So how have you grown as a leader in building teams and people to create good outcomes?
Well, okay, that's a great question. I have found that as long as I've been in this business, I'm still not the greatest judge of talent and compatibility. But I would say probably the thing I gravitate towards most when it comes to a hiring decision is I look at somebody's journey. I want to see that they've struggled in their life and that they've persevered through those struggles. I'm not necessarily looking for somebody who says, "Hey, I want to be making six figures, by year 5, or I have a certain financial goal that I want to meet, or that they're just totally motivated by money." I am looking to hire people who are empathetic, who have a life story, a story of challenge and success, because I can train people around those skills, but I can't teach people empathy, and I can't teach people patience. If they're not patient people, this is just not going to work, because sometimes we get calls from people who are just having the worst day of their life. They don't call me and say, "Hey, thanks, man, my bill went up. Just want to say have a good
It
day."
was a great day.
Yeah, hey, cool. I mean, they're calling me because their car's gone, or they're calling me because their bill went up, $50 a month. I mean, we have to be able to talk people through this stuff.
Mm.
And the weird thing is that I think everybody right now, they understand that right now we are not in California where we need to be from the perspective of crime and respect and violence. And I think we also, when I explain to people why their rates are going up and why we can't continue doing business in a certain type of product, unfortunately, they get it. And going back to your question a few minutes ago, Dom, that's really frustrating me, because I don't have the control. I can't control crime. I can't control this stuff. We're just dealing with the after effects of all those bad elements going on. And it just really saddens me. I've probably, in the last month, I've had 2 or 3 people come into the office and just say, "I just can't pay my bill. What do you want me to do here?" And I don't have a great answer for them. So we got to get that back. And I'm, like I said, I'm an optimist by nature. I think that pendulum is starting to swing, and I think we have better times ahead.
It's interesting, the trait that you're talking about. Which of your top geniuses do you think that you're relating to, of the trait that you look for in those other people? It has the
That's a
same
good,
starting letter as empathy. Does that help?
yeah, and I'm drawing a blank right now. Dom, help me. Can I call in a lifeline? Dom?
Is it enablement?
Yeah.
Enablement for $500, Alex. What do you win, Dom? A brand new car.
This is why I couldn't pass the test for the county. Just the gears. What?
Frozen
Okay.
gears.
What is the name of your wife?
I got nothing.
Yeah. So
I'm
yeah.
also not good off the cuff, so I understand.
No, but going back to team, I've hired people like I have one who's a fantastic taskmaster, and Justin, you know how much I hate that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I've got another one over here who's just I'm patient and empathetic, but Diana can sit with a customer and talk to them ad nauseum about their concerns, their needs, and find a solution. Whereas I get a little, ants in the pants when, we can't come to a faster decision. So she's great. And then we have a new hire who, again, I hired towards capabilities. She's got a story. She's got a great story to tell. I'm so proud of her. And she's learning the business. And every day I can see her learning a little bit more. When we first hired her, I was wondering, does she have a voice? Because when I interviewed her, she talked. But now she was so shy the first 2 weeks. And I told her the other day, it's like, you're like a totally different person here because you're starting to understand and you can speak with authority. And it sounds so great to hear her personality coming out in her voice.
It's what's so interesting about how you just naturally go about it in this way is that there's three traits that make for what you're looking for in somebody, like that ideal kind of team player is humility, which mainly comes about a lot of times when you've had a story where you've struggled and things have happened. And then number two, hunger, that like you desire to make a difference, to do good work, to drive things forward, to work together. And then there's the people smart, which is empathy, emotional intelligence, able to read the room. So it's like you naturally, with those people skills you naturally were already gravitating towards finding people that were the ideal team player, that every team should be modeling those three traits after who they try to develop or hire for. So that I just want to recognize you that like you were doing that really well without maybe even knowing about that that model. So that's phenomenal.
Well, but thanks to, Working Genius, I do share an office with another agent. And so we share overhead, we share team, we share everything. And he's very high in tenacity. He's like,
Nice.
if we got to get this done, we got to pound it out. And he's the one that's always coming to me and saying, hey, we got to do this, this, and this. And it's like, how can't we just go fishing or play golf or something else? And so he, like my wife, is kind of holding me, my feet to the fire and
Yeah,
keeping us on course. So it's very much a complete package. I think about, there were times when I started, I had 2 employees. I was down to 1. There was some time where I was down to 0 because I couldn't find anybody. And now we've got a total of, we have 1 remote employee who is just about to give birth to her second child, which is super cool.
Wow, that's exciting.
And yeah, when she left California, we love her so much and we didn't want to lose her that we now have her working remote. And then we've got our 2 full-time people. And now I feel like we've got a team. We've got synergy. We've got delineation of labor and talents. And I've never had that so much in my career. And that's kind of given me the ability to look at other things outside of my job that help make me, I think, more of a complete person. So, I know it's hard. I know a lot of agents right now who are working with no team at all. And that is no way to live life because you're just putting out fires. I'm not even that proactive, but there's no way you can be proactive if you don't have, and I don't care what kind of business you're in. Justin, you need different skills to bring to a business to make it function. So you gotta hire people, as painful as it is, because that is not fun.
It's definitely not fun, but I have found like I just hired somebody and they're just starting actually today, and we had first day of us brainstorming and talking through stuff. But when you have Working Genius, like I was able to identify those traits that I needed that she had, and then kind of explain to her like why I value her so much and the things that she's going to be doing and how that ties into the areas that she's uniquely gifted in, and then to put them into a position to leverage their gifts where I already know that she's going to get energy, fulfillment, and have a high capacity within her role. It's so cool when you can put somebody in a position to love what they do and to really know that they're going to excel in it, as long as obviously emotional challenges and baggage and things don't come up to weigh them down, but just from a strength perspective. Man, so yeah, it feels good because none of us can do everything on their own. Anybody who thinks that they have every single one of the geniuses and they think that they can just always work on their own, I guarantee you maybe you can for a little while, but over time it's going to cause burnout and you're not going to have the same level of success, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just listened to a video this morning. This guy's a CPA, and he talks about the economy and things happening on a financial basis. And he talks about just stay with what you know and develop your skills to be a subject matter expert in whatever it is that you do. Like I dabbled in different business opportunities and was horrible, and it made me a miserable person. And so when I heard him today, I was just realizing, man, how come I didn't pay attention to that 15, 20 years ago? Dom, in what you do it well. And if you're swimming upstream and you're not liking it, then you got to get the hell out of the pool. But I'm sure you are where you are right now because, you do enjoy what you're doing and you're thriving. Otherwise, it'll show up in people's faces. It'll show up in how they do their job. It'll show up in how they appear on a Saturday, over a barbecue and some beers. It's just, and that's not a way to go through life. I mean, I'm so fortunate that I've never had a job where I just hated what I was doing.
And on the Dom note, I just gotta say, like, if you want a financial advisor, having somebody high on discernment and tenacity is what you want. That is why Dom is my financial guy, because you want somebody who can like intuitively see the patterns within the market, notice directions to go, and who's also highly efficient at like getting things done and getting things across the finish line and being very organized. So that's why I always want a DT as my financial advisor.
Well, appreciate the plug, Justin, and just very similar to your story, Michael. I just love serving people and helping people, and I just feel incredibly blessed to be able to do what I do and serve people. And you mentioned having vulnerable conversations, like to be able to be there for a couple or an individual or a small business and serve them in that way is just incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
Have you, Mike? Have you found that the working genius stuff that we've done, like that's helped at all with your team or with kind of understanding them and how you have been able to leverage them, or have you not seen as much yet of that side of things since we were doing more on the personal side?
No, I think
What tools have helped you with understanding how to build your team? I'll say it that. I don't want to make you plug Working Genius, but just what's been tools that have helped you or things that have helped you as a leader build your team?
Well, I mean, I think it becomes a part of your subconscious.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing this with family members and friends and customers and my team. It's like, okay, what is Angie over here? And how do I best communicate with her given what I think her geniuses are? And I've certainly with my other long-term employees similarly figured out, that's why Becca gets shit done so fast. Because she's just high intensity. It's like, it would take me an hour to do this, and she does it in 5 or 10 minutes. It's like,
5 minutes, right?
Yeah, I got, so it is, I think it's just a working tool for life as you interact with people. It's what you say to folks based on, what you believe their working geniuses are, it creates, I think, a much more highly effective communication style, if you will, and just trying to interact with people and get along.
Excellent.
Well said. Any other? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, any other parting thoughts or nuggets that you might want to share with our audience?
Maybe keys to your success, anything that like you feel like has played a key role of you being able to get where you are and have the success you've had over your 30 plus years of owning an agency?
I don't know why this is just coming to mind here, but specifically to men and to young men, have some humility. Um, have some humility in your household. Have some humility in your interactions with your kids, with your other family members. Have some humility with the person on the other end of the phone. I mean, you have no idea how good or bad someone's day is, and I think if we just keep our egos in check, I wish I would have given a lot more thought to that a lot earlier in my life. And when you say, "Hey, what would my," the way you set that question up, I even feel weird answering it because, I've done some things right in my professional life and my personal life, but to attach success to it, I feel like, gosh, I'm not even sure I can wear that label. But I just nowadays, I think we would all serve each other better if we just kind of stepped off the ladder one step, put our egos in check, listened a little more, and talked a little bit less.
Is that how you would kind of describe in terms of humility would be that listening a little more and talking a little less, kind of like that seek to understand before being understood we've talked about? Or
Yeah.
what else would you call traits of humility? Because I feel like, you know, there's different things like, Aquinas described it as, you know, not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
Yeah.
Um, like what would be uh, other facets of how you would describe being humble? Because I feel like it's a, it's a, it's a term, it's the essential virtue, but it's something that is not always easily understood of what that means to people. So I'm just curious if there's any insights of what that looks like to
Yeah.
you.
I think one of the most obvious that I catch myself a lot doing is speaking about myself less. I used to, and I'm not proud of this, but I used to not converse with people. I used to just wait for the next moment for me to interject something else into the conversation. You and I have talked about this. Jonathan Haidt, I'm a huge fan of his books. I'm a huge fan
So
of
good.
his podcasts. And that guy will spend such little time talking and he'll spend so much time just asking, hey, so don't, you asked me about the big, beautiful bill. Yeah. Hey, so what are your thoughts on that? After Dom just asked me, hey, what are your thoughts about the bill? I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot. What do you think about it? He'll turn it and get people to talk, and then it blossoms into something that wasn't about the big beautiful bill. It'll be about something else. But he is listening and just prompting people into, maybe it's a 70-30 conversation, but it goes back to that whole Jordan Peterson thought that you should always assume that the person you're talking to has something of value to offer to you. But you're not going to get it if you're talking right through it, like a race car. Right? You got to listen, and you got to give some air to talk, which is not what I'm doing right now.
But you're on here to talk. So this is
Yes.
one of the
Yeah.
reasons why we brought you on. You are a galvanizer like me. And that's one of the reasons why that humility was more challenging, because galvanizers naturally, our gifts are to talk. And so when your gifts are to talk and you get energy from talking, it's going to be hard for you not to talk. So that's why it's great having a galvanizer on podcast where you're invited on, because it's an opening for you to talk, which you do naturally and very well, natural communicator,
You're
but it
giving
makes
me
the
a
humility thing
free
more
pass.
challenging. What's
Yeah,
that?
so you're giving me a free pass right now, so
Free
I'll take
pass.
I'll take
That's
it take advantage of it by just simply
yeah.
saying
Soak it up.
I'm trying to say, when I'm speaking with people, Dom, and I'm getting to know them, I try to say, I try to use the words me and I less, and just try and learn more about them, and not, even though I just want to race out there and relate to something they just said. Oh yeah, I remember that time I wrestled a polar bear in Alaska. I just restrain myself and just tell me more about that.
I want to hear about that story, Mike, at some point.
Yeah. Did the bear steal your Coca-Cola? I'm just curious.
The end of The Revenant, with Lenny DiCaprio, wrestling the bear. No, No, it's just, I'm trying to talk about myself less, as much as that is like really hard for me to do, and just try and do the Jonathan Haidt thing. Listen more, ask good questions.
Well, and again, both galvanizers, you and I, and we're on the same trajectory because recently it's become so clear how often I say me, I say I, totally just natural, can't even do without thinking. And it has been a discipline and a habit to, which is virtue is just building, good habits, right? So, but a habit of checking myself and turning it, like you said, back to the other person and not making it about me. So it's cool hearing you say that because I think it's something that a lot of us in this day and age struggle with, you know, is
Yeah.
that making it about ourselves and making the I and the me and waiting so I can talk and not really fully listening and being um, fully present for people, active listening. So it's great that you're doing that journey.
Trying.
That's why we call it a journey. You haven't arrived. I haven't arrived either. I'm not going to
Yeah.
arrive till I get to heaven because I'm always going to still be struggling with that. But
And I was very, very, very late for the bus.
hey, at least you caught the bus at some point, like
Yeah,
better than to
you
catch
got
the
a
bus at
ticket.
some.
You got a ticket and you're on, man. Keep rolling.
It's never too late to catch the bus, Mike.
Oh, goodness.
Oh man, this has been fun. I knew this was going to be a good time. I knew this was going to be a good time because you're one of my favorite people, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the time with you two, and give me the chance to, talk about me and I and all that stuff. Because again, I'm trying to keep everyone in check.
It's like giving you some candy or something. It's like dessert. It's like here, just you enjoy. You're holding off on the sweets. Here's a little candy bar. Just go to town just for this little bit of time, and then you got to go back to not having any.
I'm
What's
drinking
that?
water, but I'm on a total sugar high right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just talking with you guys, so I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
For a galvanizer who's high on enablement, it's a people-oriented genius, and you're able to communicate. Like podcasts are like the best. It's like taking an energy drink.
Yeah. I thought about it. Gosh, a buddy of mine wants to have he jokes about us doing a podcast because I like to cook, and so he wants us to do a podcast where we cook and, drink bourbon. And I think, I just don't think that's a good idea. It's something, you say the wrong thing and then everything's going to come to a grinding halt. I need to stick to this kind of stuff, not bourbon and cooking. That is just a bad combo.
Well, here's the key to that, Mike. You have to have someone with high discernment and tenacity to do your editing and really catch those things and get all the details of the potential snafus that you may have done in there to make sure that it's friendly to the world that should be out there. So
also, if you do decide to start that podcast, I will be your guest and happy to cover the world of pizza.
Italian.
Are you a pizza snob, Dom? Are you a pizza snob?
I admit it. I got like 8 pizza books on my bookshelf. I've got a pizza oven in my backyard, and like Sunday afternoons, like we're making pizza with the fam.
Oh, isn't that fun? What a great activity! Yeah, what a great activity! Everyone gets to personalize their pizza, and and then you get to share or not share. Yeah, that's a great way to have a party.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, Mike, before we close it down?
No, really enjoyed our time together, though. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.